to talk about dealing with text files, how to access them, manage them, modify the contents. So that's the first topic of the lecture. The other topic is file manipulation. File manipulation is basically accessing like the system, like in terms of folders, change the path, make directories, remove directories, remove files. However, when it comes to the removal part, it needs authentication. So let's not give it a lot of thought, just authentications. So yeah, I'm just gonna talk about them, just mention the commands related to it. But yeah, definitely we will learn how to create a new directory, how to display the path and change the path, also how to make a new folder. There is a module in Python called OS. That's lowercase letters. All right, so by the end of this lecture, we will be able to open a text file or create a text file, read it, and write on it. So for output and write strings or numbers to the file. And also open a text file for input and read strings or numbers from the file. So basically read and write. That's what we're going to be working on. Then we'll use some library functions, as I mentioned, as the OS library to access and navigate a file system. So what is a text file? It is a software object that stores data on permanent medium such as disk or CD. Disks like our hard disks. And text files usually have the extension of .txt. Those are the text files. And by the way, a reminder, Python files, you guys remember what is the Python file extension? .py. So that's the typical file extension when we create a new file in Python. We have seen that on Spider, when you create a new file, it will have that extension. Okay, now what is the difference between a text file and a direct input from the user? So sometimes you have data, like history of sensors readings, for example, or you have some data from the internet and you want to do some analysis. And these kind of data, usually they are huge. It has a lot of text that cannot be entered manually every time you ask the user for an input. So sometimes you keep the records in the form of a text file and you want to read them. So when you compare it to the keyboard input that from a human user, text files have advantages over that. The data set is larger. That's the first one. You might have 100 million readings. All you need to do is just load the file and you have the data, instead of let the user enter the data several times. And then the data can be input much more quickly and with less chance of error, because there's no user intervention. Less chance of error, no user intervention. Like, it's not manual. It happens automatically and quickly. Data can be used repeatedly with the same program or with different programs. Like the data themselves, it's a text file. You can just open it, read it, and you do whatever you want to do there. So the file could be used with different programs. So those are the advantages of text files or data in general when compared to the user input. And remember, the user input is always string. If you want to have numbers, you have to convert that string. Similar thing here with the text files. The data type within the text file is always a string. If you want to treat it as a number or a different way, you have to do some form of data conversion. All right, so what kind of text files we're going to be working with? Are going to be small ones, like it might have just 1 or 2 lines for the sake of practice and illustration. Later, inshallah, we may have a project, or probably in the future also you might need to manipulate text files. then this is the way to start. All right, so their format, the text editor, we know Notepad, text edit, like those are Windows applications. You can create, view, and save data in the text file. So a text file that contains 6 floating point numbers might look like this. So might have the data something like this. So 6 numbers. Now all data, that's the key thing, they are all string. Now, so if you have a text file that has this content, that means this are a string. Those are of data type string. If you want to treat them as numbers, the number must be converted to string before out. Okay. Now here are the commands to write a text file. So first, we have this command that's a built-in command in Python. And the file object is this one here, and you'll see that later. So this is what we call a file object, F file object. And you can have any name. Could be X, could be Y, it could be whatever. The syntax is open, and this is your target file name. And here, there is what we call a key argument. So this one here means I want to open the file and enable the writing capability. So I want to write. Now here is the thing, if the file was not there, it will be created. So to create a new file or a new text file in Python, this is the syntax. So you create a data object or a file object equals, and the syntax is open, and you put the file name, and think about it, this is a flag that I want to open the file for writing purpose. Now, if the file does not exist, it will be created. Now, here's the thing, if the file has some initial content in it, the content will be erased. So if the file already exists and Python opens it, when the data are written to the file and the file is closed, the previously data will be erased. So here is the syntax. Here is the workflow when you want to open the file. First, you need this line. So first you need to open, then write, then close. This is the progress. Opening the file or create. Here is the syntax for that. To write, here is the syntax for this one. Just simply F, that's your data object or file object, and the command write, and in here between the parentheses, any kind of string you think of. It's a string. And you know, with the strings, we have certain rules, like, you know what \n means? Make a new line, and you'll see this piece of code right now. When all outputs are finished, when you are done, it will be closed. So let me try this particular example on Spider. Okay, so let me create a new file. And since we're going to be creating files and stuff, I highly suggest to shift the folder. So I'm going to use our course folder for this. And let's look at the contents here. So we have text file.py, my file, integers. Text file is like a set of commands I made yesterday just for practicing. But let's say we assume we start from scratch. And I want to create a new file. So let's have my file object, F equals open, and I want to open a new file. So new file .txt. And then I need to do the flag. I want it for writing. Now notice here, a new file does not exist. And I can see here, this is my file manager. These are the files. So I have a folder lab 7, file called integers, file called my file, and here is a Python file, text file. So there is no file called new file.txt. Now, if I run this part, notice here that there will be a new text file created. And there you go, that's a new file. And if you want to check the content, just double click. Am I sharing the screen, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to check the content, just simply double click. Nothing is there. It's a blank file. So let me write. Yes. Wa alaikum assalam. Who is with me?
Abdulaziz.
All right. Remind me, Abdulaziz, by the end of the class to put you present.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. All right. So we have created a new file. Now I want to write in it. So this object here, I called it F. I'm going to use the same object name. F dot, and here's the syntax. Write and put whatever string you may think of. And also the escape sequences, like the new line, the tab, they are all applicable here because they are string escape sequences. So I'm going to just type hello there. And let me see. Okay, so there are no errors. That's good. Now notice here it displays the number of characters in the string. If you want to count them, hello has 5, there has 5, and the space is 1. But it's not of importance to us. Okay, now let's check the contents of new file. It's still blank. Why? Because I'm still in writing mode. I'm not done editing the file. If I want to see whatever I wrote here, I need to do the file closing. F.close, and this is the syntax for it. So here is the sequence. Open or create a file, write the contents you want to put there, and then close the file. So once I hit close, a reminder, new file is blank. Now, why new file? I created here. F.close, no errors. Let me check the content. Hello there has been typed. Now, someone might ask, what, like, can't I just go directly and create a file on Windows? Yes, you can, but we don't always have the privilege to deal with graphical user interface. Later, inshallah, in the future, you might be working with machines that just deal with command line interface, that literally you just write or type commands. And this is actually the standard way or the classical way of creating files. And Python is one of the high-level languages that will enable you to access your system files, modify them, create new files, etc., many functionalities. Okay, so this is how I created a new file, write in it, and close it. Now let me open the same. Yes?
When you put new file.txt, for example, does it look for the file only like throughout the whole PC or only?
No, the whole folder, the whole path, this path. Yeah, not the whole PC, this path, this directory. This is what we call a working directory, and that's something we're gonna cover at the end of the class using the OS module. So yeah, that's a good question.
There's another file in the PC, but it's not in the same directory.
No, yeah, it will not be harmed. Nothing will happen there. Yeah, whatever we write actually in Python, it only affects the working directory. It will not have direct access to all system files. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
All right, great. Now, this is how we created the file. Now, I want to open the same file, write a new content. Now, let's open a new file. There is hello there. Now, let's see if I open the same file, and it's going to be opening and creating a new file is the same thing, the same command. Make sure the flag is W, because later we'll see a new flag. So let me clear all the contents. Have no variables. So let me create the file or open the file. Now notice here, if you go to the variable explorer, as I mentioned here, there you go. That's the file object. And there you go. This is what we call a text IO wrapper, but yeah, this is an object for IO mode. Let's not worry about these details, but that's an object. You can't access the content. Like even if you try to double click, you can't do anything with there. So let me go back to the files. Now open the file, we did that. Now let me write a new string. like the one we have in the slides. First line, new line here, and then second line. Okay, new file, open it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, new file, open it. The content there has been erased because I opened it for editing mode. If I close it here, nothing has happened. And there you go. Like once you open it for writing, immediately the initial content will be gone. Now let me write here. Okay, open it again. Write the text. Again, this 24 is the number of characters in the string. Close it. New file, first line, second line.
دكتور أنا وراك بدخل أوكي.
Okay.
جزاك الله خير.
So yeah, this is how you open or create a new file or a new text file in Python using Python. And yeah, this is what we call writing a text to a file. This is the syntax for it. 3 steps. And again, that's something definitely will come to your exam or quiz in the future. I will ask you or I'll give you a task, open a file, write a text, and that's it. You by yourself should know that there is a step of closing the file, because if you don't do that, Python will assume that you are still writing a text into your file. So you have to close it, then the text will appear into your text file. Okay, someone might ask, what if I want to write numbers? It's the same exact syntax, however, convert the numbers into a string before writing it into the file. So the file method, right, expects a string as an argument. So other types of data must be converted into a string. So here is the code of storing random numbers into a text file, 500 random numbers. Let's not worry about this randomness thing. I will start by writing a simple code of writing several numbers, then we'll do this code. So let me close or delete this one. So I'm gonna call a file, file integer. It's a file object, as I mentioned. It might have any name you may think of. Now, just something I thought of. I'm gonna use methods related to this object, like f.write, f.close. So this one here is quite a long name. So I'm gonna give it f1, for example, or fint, and underscore for clarity, equals, open, the syntax, integers. I have a file of the same name, so I'm gonna give it another name, integers1.txt. The mode will be writing, the flag. So once you click on it, a new file has been created, integers.txt. Now I want to write a number in there. So just type f.int.write. Here is the syntax. Make sure this name here is the same of the file object. .write. Now I want to write numbers. If I say 1, it will give me an error, or it will not work the way I expect. So there you go. Right argument must be string, not integer. So I need to convert it into a string. So just str. This is how you create a string in Python. Whatever data you think of, just put str and put the data within the parentheses. The data will be converted into a string. So str. There you go. Check integers. It should be blank because I need to close the file. So fint.close, and the syntax, you have to finish it with empty parentheses. Close, done, integers 1, and there you go, that's the value 1. What if I want to display numbers from 1 to 10? Simply you need a loop in that one, because each time you write a different character. So let's do it on a loop. for, okay, let me close the ones. This is the only part that is going to be changed. The closing should be there, so don't forget this one. And here is the opening. Now I need to put it in a syntax, the loop for I in range 10. Okay, then I'm going to start writing. I will write the values from 0 to 9, or 1 to 10 if you want to make it 1 to 10, so it's going to be 111. If you guys remember the work of range. All right, so how to do it? Again, similar thing, integer dot write. And you're going to put the string version of I, because I will be having values from 1 to 10. Remember, 11 will be excluded. And that's it. This is how you write the file. Okay, let's check the contents of integer. Initially, it was 1. So let me open it again. The initial content will be erased. It's blank. Let's do the loop. Nothing will be there. Close it. And you should find the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Notice they are all adjacent or close to each other. You can solve it by adding a space. Any idea how to add the space? I need help on this one. How I'm going to add space to these numbers here? Any idea? It is simple. Let's use concatenation, but we'll concatenate with what? With a space. So plus, as simple as this. Open the file again. Initial content has been erased. Do the loop. Nothing will be there. Close it. And there you go. I have spaces between those. What about new lines? What if I want to add them or put the string in the form of new lines? Any idea?
Concatenate with n.
Exactly, \n. Let me run it all at once. There you go. Perfect. So yeah, think about it like text manipulation and manipulate the contents of the text. There are ways to do it by concatenating with a space or concatenating with a new line. I can modify the formatting. At least my text will be presentable. Now, the code that is in the slides is displaying integers, random set of integers between 1 to 500 for 500 times. So since we mentioned the word random, I need to import the random library. Usually import will happen before you start the code. So random. And in this case, I'm displaying for 500 times. So display range 500. Okay, what will be my numbers? So here, if I do it this way, it will display numbers from 0 to 499. Let's check here, 0 to 499. But if I want random numbers, so I need to modify the value of I. It should not be the count, because this one now is the count or the control variable, I. But I want a different variable. So here I will call number equals random dot rand int. Remember the syntax for the random. And I'll put my initial value and final value. I want values from 0 to 500. So 0, my initial point, final point 500. And then I will write number instead of I. So this one was in ascending order from 0 to 499. If I do this, I'll import random first. Okay, everything went fine. And let's look at the values. And you see the randomness nature here. It's written 500 times because I wrote from 0 to 500. And there you go, just random values between that range. If I want to have a binary sequence, you guys know what binary sequence is. It's 0 and 1. So something like this, as simple as this one. So yeah, just zeros and ones. So this is the example here. It is exactly the same concept. So I have imported random. Now I opened a new file called integer. In my case, I kept it the same name, integers1. And there you go, for count. In my case, I called it I, for count in range 500. Do it for 500 times. Give me any random number between 1 and 500. Write it, close the file. Is it clear? This example, is it clear? Any questions on this one? Any questions? No answer? Okay, clear. Okay, inshallah. So let's keep going. Okay, so we have for now, we were able to open a file for modifying or creating a new file to fill it with data. Now, that's not always the usual case, because as I mentioned, you can do that usually with the graphical user interface and stuff, even though now we have the privilege, sometimes you may not, but this is the way of creating a file. But the usual case or the most frequent task is to read the contents of the file, do processing, then store the result in the file. And that's going to be today's lab. Mostly it's going to be something like this. They will be reading the contents of the file, then do some processing, then write the contents of the file. In fact, today's lab has 3 tasks. The first task will be just read the contents of the file and copy them to a new file. Very simple task. Reading them like this, write them like the previous one. That's the first one. The second task, we're going to do encryption like last week. However, my encryption now will not happen with a text from the user. It will be, the text file will be given to you. You need to cipher it using Caesar cipher. You have that code segment in lab 6. The last task is the opposite. I will decipher a text. Decipher, so I'll give you a coded text. So let me just show it to you, just to give you a feeling about what I'm talking about. So if I go to my desktop folder, ITGN lab 7, secret message, notice it's rubbish, right? Because this is a coded message. My task is look at this, load it, and try to decode it using Caesar cipher. And here I'm not giving you the distance, so you try to guess. I'm telling you that the distance is a value ranging from 1 to 10. Then you just try with value equals 1, you see the message, 2, 3, 4, until you get a clear message, then you keep repeating the task. So let me go back here. So yeah, our work is manipulating text files. Oops, I went to the beginning. So to read, it's the same exact syntax, but the difference here will be the flag or the argument, this one here. Instead of write, I will do read. And in this one here, you do not modify the contents of the file. The contents will remain intact. It's going to be the same. Now, if the file does not exist, Python will raise an error because here you are reading, you are not writing, you are not creating a new file. The file, it is assumed that it is there, you have it. So if the file does not exist, Python will raise a flag. There's an error. Now, there are several ways to read the file. This is the common one, how to load the file. To read, something like this. So text equals f.read. Again, f and f, there are file objects. You name them the way you want. And simply, this is how you read the contents. And this is the only command we're going to be working on. There are others. I will not rely on them. I will not worry about them. Let's just at least read the contents of the file. Some other commands, they will be related to new lines. if you want to load the message line by line, for example. Sometimes when the text itself, there are some separators, there are some certain processing, but for me, for the sake of simplicity, I will keep it like this. Just read the command and f.read. And if you want to display the text, it will show you it says a string. There are some escape sequences. They are not of importance because when you do the print command, the escape sequences will do their function. So you'll have something like this. I will go back to my example. I think we created a new file, first line, new line. So I'm going to load it again. So let me remove this. Now f, any object name equals open a new file .txt. Now the mode will be reading. Let me clear the workspace. So there you go. Same thing, text IO wrappers, object, nothing will happen there. Now I want to display the content. I need to read the content first. So I need to create a new variable called text to store my text that I'm reading. So it's a bit different than write. You write there directly. There is no variable in here. I need a variable to handle the data. So it's going to be f.read. And notice here, once I put this one, there you go, that's my text. And first line, second line. However, when you just display text, this one is just a display, that's not the actual thing. Just say text, and you will see that it is the same as the slides, first line, and you have the escape sequences, new line, second line. If I want to see it the way it should be, you have to put it in a print statement. There you go, first line, second line. And notice here also, there is no closing because technically I did not load the file for editing. I loaded just for reading, or I just loaded the content of the file. The contents of the file will remain the same. You can check, go to new file. It is the same, nothing will happen. So this one is usual if you want just to load data from the file, you are not worried about modifying the contents of that file. So yeah, this is how you read it. Now let's see other means of reading it. We'll just mention them for the sake of clarity. So if you want to do it line by line, but using a loop. So f open my text file is the same way you start. So f equals open file. This is how you read it. Now for line in f. Now line here could be anything. Print line. So it will go to the contents of the object file f. Now for each line, print line. So first line 1, second line, and so on. This one here is kind of the same thing, but this one you read the line. Again, it's the same thing. But this one, it will traverse over each line individually until you hit the last line. Last line will have an empty string. So once you reach the empty string, you do a break. So open file, the same thing. While true, that's an infinite loop. Line equals f.read line. If the line will equals to the empty string, break. And then you print the text, and it'll be something like this. So this is an example. You may need it, you may not. Depends on the nature of the problem. But from my side, I'm mentioning it for the sake of knowledge that probably in the future you may come into a problem that you need this command. A similar one here. And this one, you read the line by line, but when you have spaces between the text, like assume that you have a text file, you have A, B, C, D, E, F, and you want to access each character individually. The previous one, this example here, will mention something like this. So it will display A, B, C, D, E, F, like line by line. And this one here, for line in F, line equals line dot strip. Remember this command, we have done it because it's the string. The strip will separate each comment or each component individually. So the number is this one in case you have integers, like in the previous example, convert them into a number, then do the summation and the sum is. So that's one way of doing it. Another one where you have the line split for word in the word list and the sum. So it's kind of the same thing. They both will do the same task. So they are not of very importance. They are just for the sake of mentioning. All right, so the summary for dealing with text files is as follows. Open, file name, and mode could be read and write, or it could be read and write, or A. Now this A, we did not mention it. This one means is append. Basically, it means that open the file for writing, but I want to write on top of it. In fact, let's do an example on it. So let's go to my example, new file, first line, second line, and I want to add a new line, third line. So I'll open the file, new file here, but now I'll open it for append purpose, and the command will be f write, if I recall well. Third line. Okay, clear all the variables. Open the file. Now notice the contents has not been modified. Right? And close. Okay, third line. Print text. I need to do the closing part. This is f.close. Remember, whenever you have editing part, you need to close. And let's open the file here. Third line. So I need to put a new line ahead. Okay. Something like this. So this one will remain there. I need just to remove it. And there we go. I want a fourth line. Open the file, append, and close. Fourth line, and so on. So sometimes, again, depends on the nature of the problem, you may need to add text to your original text, and this is the way to do it. In fact, that's what mostly some data acquisition units, they have. Let's say a car that has a sensor that reads, say, the temperature of the engine every 5 minutes. So there will be a loop running indefinitely. And every 5 minutes, the loop will read the text that has all the readings and add to it the new reading. Then close. Another 5 minutes, open the file, add the new reading, and close. So your reading file, like that sensor, will keep updating on the contents of the reading. So when some data analysis guy or some, let's say, an engineer from the manufacturing company wants to check the status of the engine, he will just load that file and do whatever processes are needed. All right, so we'll go back to the slides. So as I mentioned, open has 3 flags or 4 flags. The major ones we cover today is read and write. You can open it for both, but append is also an option. The last 2 values mean read, write, and append. F-close, when you close the file after writing, no needed for input files. Yeah, closes an output file. Now write a string. We know the command should be a string here. Whatever you have will be there in the string. F.read, read the contents. Read line, read it line by line, and returns it as a string. Include a new line, returns if the end of the file is reached. All right, any questions on text files? Okay, so we can keep going with dealing with the file system. Accessing and manipulating files and directories on the disk. Now we will have capabilities of accessing whatever directory on my computer or folder, and also dealing like whenever I'm in that directory, I can modify all files within that directory. So the hierarchy is something like this. Okay. Yeah, this is what we call a hierarchy. We have something called like a root, or the parent, or like is the main file system. And there is the parent, and the parent will have some children or siblings. So there's the current sibling, my file. It is pretty much like when you have in Windows C, say my user, documents, file.txt, for example. So this is what we call my Lamberg, or like is the beginning, that's the root, that's my parent, and there are subfolders. So let's not worry about this current, sibling, child names. They're just, for me, they are all called subfolders or subdirectories. Now this one here, what I mentioned, that's what we call a path. Path means it's the way to access the contents of a certain directory in the file system. So the complete set of directories and files form a tree-like structure. And the top of the tree or the bottom of the tree will call it a root because it will be expanding. Now, when you have a single root directory at the top, it branches down to nested files and subdirectories, just like as I mentioned. Now you can access any other file or directory by using the path name. So yeah, that's what the path I just put. When the chain starts with the root directory, it's called absolute path. But if the chain starts with the current working directory, it's called a relative path name. And I'll show you examples in this one in a few seconds. All right. So to open file named myfile.txt in the child, parent, and sibling directories where the current, yeah, let's not worry about all this conventions, child, my sibling, and whatever. The general way will be something simple. Again, let's not worry about those. And we'll see that actually right now. So first, I should have clear vision of the path. So hide the window. So this is my path. There we go. Now, what if the file I want to open is within Lab 7 folder? I don't want to change the directory of Lab 7, but I want to see the contents of file 1, for example. So here is a way to do it. So F open, then I will have, now I'm going to use the relative path. So the relative path is Lab 7, file 1. And let me read it as read it. Now here I'm not gonna use reading, I'm gonna use f.read and print text. Let's see, will it work? There's an error. I think there's no lead for Lab 7 then. File 1x0. Okay, so here's the path, I think, because it's a Windows file. There we go. So yeah, that's how you do the file system here. I think it does not support Windows. Yeah, it should be something like this. It's a Linux kind of convention. All right, fread. And there we go. This is the file. By the way, my current working directory is this one here, ITGN130. I want to access the contents of Lab 7, so I have to put the relative path. Where is it? There you go, the relative path name. By mistake, if I don't do that, if I don't do lab 7 file1.txt, and I'm doing it for reading, it will raise an error, like the file does not exist. So I need to put the path name. So the folder is lab 7. So I'm in this path here. This is my folder. This is my contents of ITGN130. I want to access the contents of folder lab 7. So I need to start with lab 7 slash. So once I put lab 7 slash, I can access any file within that folder only. So if you go to the contents of that folder, there they are. And by the way, I am in the same folder. I did not modify the folder. So that's one way of doing it. Now the other way, I can use the full path. So it's something like this. I'm going to copy this one. F equal open and okay. ITGN130 lab 7 file1.txt. And again for reading mode. Will I get an error in this case? Yes, because I need to switch all the slashes into backslash. So keep that in mind. All is going to be slash. No backslash is allowed in this case. Okay, let's clear everything. Read the file. Read the contents, display them. So this is what we call an absolute path, and this is a relative path. Now the difference between them, absolute path will go all the way from the top disk all the way to the file. This one, to me, it's more, let's say, it's better that I don't have to worry about like the whole story of the root. As long as I'm in this folder, I can also access all subdirectories. Each one of them has own pros and cons. I prefer this, but there's no harm of doing this. Again, these are options I'm showing you that you can use. You don't have to use this. You don't have to use this. Use the one that you feel comfortable with. That's as simple as it is. So yeah, this is what it meant by doing this. Open, you have child, my file. So this is the case of child. This is the parent file, and this is the sibling file. So let's not worry about these names of sibling, parent, and stuff. So when you design Python programs that interact with files, it's a good idea to include an error recovery. There is a command for OS module. Like sometimes when people put a wrong path, and nothing will happen, and then they don't know what the problem is. So this piece of syntax is just showing that if the path has an issue, check if it exists or not. So it returns a Boolean. So before attempting to open a file for input, check if the file does exist or not. So function os path.exists and support this checking. So let me do it here in my problem. Okay. First of all, I need to import the OS. I will talk about it later, inshallah, in this lecture. Import OS, and then os.path.exists. Then I will put the path if it exists or not. Let's say, for example, this is my path. Now we'll check. We are in ITGN130. And does this path lab 7 file 1 exist? It should be true. So let me run this. True. There we go. Let's say by mistake I put file instead of file 1. Oh, sorry. I put it here. Now file does not exist. False. So this one is just a check. If this file exists, open it. If it does not, just ignore it. But again, it's of no importance. It has its own applications, but it's not a must. So here is an example that to check all Python file names, to print all the names of files that current working directory with the name file. So this is the piece of code here. And from this one, we will learn a couple of commands. So first of all, import OS. This is the module that we're going to be working on to access files in the system or get a look into the directory or files in the system, OS. Now, current working directory, here is the syntax. os.get CWT, get working directory or current working directory. Current working directory. As simple as this. Now, list of file names, os.list dir, list the directory names, current working directory path, which is this one here. Now, for name and list of file names, f.py in name print name. Let's see how this one will work. So let's say in my case, I want to display all txt files, not just py. So import os. Now my working directory equals os.get current working directory. So let's clear everything. Variable name is blank, import os. Now here, when I put working directory, get current working directory, you'll see the same path as in here. You'll see this one here. You should see this one. There you go. Google Drive, Al-Khatib, desktop, ITGN130. Now someone might ask, it is there. What's the use of this one? Again, Spider is an IDE, is an integrated development environment. People don't usually rely on those. They use only text editor. So they prefer to start everything from scratch. So in this case, I want to check my directory. So this is my current working directory. There is another command actually for changing the working directory, and we'll see that in a few minutes. All right. So I want to check my list of files. List of files equal os dot list dir of my working directory. I use the tab for autofill. List of files os.list dir working directory. So we'll check list of files, and there you go. So it returns a list. List will be the topic of next week, inshallah. Lists, that's a data type. And if you open it here, there you go. Integers, lab 7, my file, text file. So notice here, this one will return everything within that current working directory. So it returns lab 7, integer, so it returns everything, folders and file names. So integers, the text, but that's my first file. Integers, my second file, lab 7, my file, text file. It will not access subfolders. That's a key point here. All right, now I can run a loop over the length of this one. So for name and list of file names, so I can check for name and the list of file names if my extension if name equals, or sorry, we will gonna use the n part. So if the string, I want to check txt files, .txt n name print name, and that's it. We check for name in the list of file names, f.py print name. So on this one, this code will display only files that has a txt extension. And there they are. I want to check my Python files. Text files.py. So yeah, for a name and list of files, so it will go to the list of files variable, and it will go. So name will have these values: integers, lab 7, my file.txt, new file.txt, text files.py. Now, why do I need this? Sometimes I want to, this one just to display the file names, .txt. Sometimes you want to do more tasks. Assume that you have a folder that have hundreds of files, and you want to organize your, let's say, Python files will have a certain naming. Your text files have a different convention for naming, and so on and so on. So this is a way of accessing your files, filter them based on their data type, and do whatever process that you need. Sometimes you want to rename the file or change the text of certain file names. And you can do that. And this is like one way of doing this, of at least reading the file names, and you can modify whatever you want. All right. So this one, an example to change, or sorry, to display the Python file names in your working directory. Now here are the commands, and we're gonna work on them one by one. First of all, sometimes you want to change your working directory. Change dir. By the way, all of these commands will be preceded with os dot. os dot. So the first one, you change your current working directory. Again, sometimes it's of importance, since we don't, sometimes we will not be able to use the IDE. We can't use the change that by clicking. We have to follow this syntax, and you'll see an example on this one. Get current working directory, we have done that. Sometimes I use it to confirm if I'm in the right folder. List dir, list all your directories in the path, or file names in the path. So it retains a list of names in the directory name path. Here, make dir, mkdir is making directory, create a new folder. Remove a file. This one, it needs admin or super user privileges. Rename. I may have the old name and the new name. So that's, as I mentioned, like one of the processes that you can use for the file name. And remove the dir. Again, remove a folder or remove directory for sometimes you want to get rid of a folder, and that's the way to do it. Again, please super user mode. Let me try the example of renaming. Can we do that? So, okay. All right. Now I'll go back to this example. As I mentioned here, we just display the names. What if I want to rename each file name? So instead of having them integers 1, my file, new file, I want them all to be of the name file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4. So I want to rename all these files. There are two ways. Go to the folder, rename each one of them individually. This one here, I'm going to do it with Python. So I'm going to modify the text file names and change their names. So I'm going to use os.rename. Now, what is my source file name? So my original name is name, and I want to change them into file, and I'll put a sequence 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to use concatenation. I don't have a counter here, so I'll create a counter. CTR equal 1 plus string of CTR. And then I will do the increment CTR plus equal 1. Now let's see, will this work? Clear everything. And there you go. It did work actually. So file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4. So that's what we call scripting. Scripting, you write a code to do a certain task. And this is one of the simplest ways to do it. Instead of doing it in manual way, you can do it this way. Sometimes needed some renaming files. That's one application. Like that's one of the tasks you may need to do for some files. If the file name is a text, give it a certain name. All right. So I hope this one clarifies like the use of os.rename. So you put the initial file name, which is name, that's the original name, and change it with file. And I gave it a counter here. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. There is another way, but let's not worry about the details. Okay, what I want you from these slides or this part, at least know the function for each command. So for example, I want to create a new directory in this folder. So let me go get out of the loop. os.make directory and give it a name. New folder. There you go. I created a new folder. And let's try to remove that folder, which I doubt that will happen. os.remove directory, new folder. It will raise a flag that should need admin privileges. So there you go. Access is denied. So we need some authentication from the user, because in my computer, I'm a user here. I'm not the admin. So this one, access is denied. I can use it manually through Windows, but I cannot use it through Python. Okay, so let's say I want to change my current working directory. I want to change it into, where is C? I want it to access this folder. So this is my new path. os.chdr, change directory. And I'll put my new path, cm-al-khatib. And notice one thing here. My path is the Google Drive al-Khatib desktop ITGN130. Once I hit this, this will change. There you go, cm-al-Khatib. List the folders in this, or list the files or the folders in this one, os.list dir, list directories. And instead of writing the whole path, you can put os.get current working directory. And it will display all files name in there. So I have only one folder called documents. We check. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's one folder only, documents. Let's see what other functions. So we change the directory, get current work directory, list files. We then create a new directory, remove directory. They need admin privileges. Renaming a file. We have done that. That's one way of doing it. So please memorize the syntax for each one of them. It might be beneficial later. I'm thinking of a project, and in that project, I might give you a folder, and that will require a lot of manipulation. All right. So in summary, what we covered today in the lecture, a text file is a software object that will allow programs to transfer data to and from permanent storage. File object is used to open like a connection to a text file from input and output. The commands or methods we use, read and write for the file object. So the loop can go over the sequence of lines.